Hi there, welcome to End-to-End Solution Architect session. Today, I'll be doing the migration of Azure DevOps to GitHub Enterprise. It is basically that we have our Azure DevOps organization, multiple projects, under projects, we have repositories, pipelines, boards, work items, all these things. Now, suppose for a business requirement, you need to migrate your Azure DevOps to your GitHub Enterprise. In my past sessions, you have seen that how I did sign up for the GitHub Enterprise, the cloud version. Okay. So in this session, I will show that how we can do the migration of Azure DevOps to GitHub Enterprise. Now, here is the instruction link I will be sharing in our GitHub repository, end-to-end solution architect GitHub repository, where we have the objectives that migrate a single repository from Azure DevOps to GitHub Enterprise. Secondly, migrate multiple repositories in batch from Azure DevOps to GitHub Enterprise. Third, migrate Azure DevOps organizations. It can be one or multiple, which contains multiple projects, repositories, branches, tags, commits, code review, comments, pipelines to GitHub Enterprise. Means all together. Okay. Now it depends actually the requirement in your organization that whether you want to migrate only the Azure repositories to your GitHub Enterprise and do the pipeline stuff and board and sprint planning, everything in Azure DevOps only, or you want to take everything from your DevOps and migrate it to GitHub Enterprise. It depends on the requirement. But if you know this approach, you will be able to perform that migration, whether it is required a big bang approach, everything shifting to GitHub Enterprise, or particularly shifting repositories to GitHub Enterprise. Now, in this session, I will be using GitHub Enterprise Importer. Okay, there are some manual steps as well through the portal GitHub Enterprise that you can import your repository from any other SVC platform. Okay, so that manual step I am not showing because in organization, in actual production requirement, you will be requiring to migrate multiple repositories in batch from Azure DevOps to GitHub Enterprise. Now, one more thing this session will cover that in some cases you need to migrate your repositories from one GitHub account to other GitHub accounts. Okay, so that will also include in this instruction. I will not show the demo, but it will be the similar approach and I will tell that what to change what. Okay, so let's proceed. But I have divided this complete walkthrough or demo of migration of Azure DevOps to Enterprise, GitHub Enterprise into few parts. So in this part particularly, we will perform doing it from the scratch, where I'll show that download GitHub CLI and install, then install GitHub Enterprise importer extension and generate personal access token, which is called PAT for source and target repositories. In our case, the source repository is Azure repo and our target repository is GitHub Enterprise repo. And how to create that, I will show. And if migrating from Azure DevOps to GitHub Enterprise, then use source personal access token from ADO and target personal access token from GitHub Enterprise. Okay. And then setting the privileges of those token. And we will see that what are the privileges required for this token. The next step will be set environment variable. These are the environment variable. So if you are using your Linux system, you can set your export your environment variable. And if you are using your Windows system, then you know that you set your environment variable through the portal. Okay. And in our next part of this session, I will show that actually executing the script or the commands using GitHub Enterprise Importer, how we can generate the automated script which will actually perform the migration for multiple repositories in parallel. We'll cover that part in our part 2 of this session. Well, so let's start by the step 1, which is download GitHub CLI. And if you see this is the documentation or the step-by-step instruction over here. I will share this link, or if you come to our GitHub repository, which is GitHub slash end-to-end solution architect slash migrate hyphen ADO hyphen 2 hyphen GHE. So migrate Azure DevOps to GitHub Enterprise. That's it. Okay. So let me open this download GitHub CLI over here. So I have opened it in another tab, and it's showing that take GitHub to the command line. Okay. Download for Windows. I am showing it in my Windows system. You can use it for your Linux or your own Windows system as well. It doesn't matter. Okay. So download for Windows system. It has downloaded .msi file, and I'm just installing it. Clicking on next, next, install. Click on finish. Well, if you want to see the installation instruction over here, you can just click over here. You will get the CLI instruction, CLI installation instruction from GitHub over here. Okay, if you scroll down in the README, you will find like this. Here is the CLI installation instruction from github.com. Now we have installed our GitHub CLI. Let's verify the installation. So I'm opening the command prompt. Here is the command prompt I have opened. Now let's run the command ghpr status. So it is saying that to get started with GitHub CLI, please run ghauth login. Alternatively, populate the gh token environment variable with a GitHub API authentication token. So there are two things over here. So either we can do the git auth login, or alternatively we can populate gh underscore token environment variable with GitHub API authentication token. Okay, so let's give a try with auth login. So it is auth login. What account do you want to log into? In our case, it is github.com, the cloud platform, not the GitHub Enterprise server. So clicking on enter. What is your preferred protocol for Git operations? So it is our HTTPS. Authenticate Git with your GitHub credentials. Yes. How would you like to authenticate GitHub CLI? Logging with web browser, paste an authentication token. I would go for logging with a web browser. So it is asking first copy your one-time code and press enter to open github.com in your browser. Okay, so let me keep this in a note. I have noted this, and press enter to open github.com. So it has opened a separate tab and going for device activation, and it is asking me to enter that number. Okay, it is asking me to authorize GitHub CLI. That's fine. Authorize GitHub. Okay, it is asking me to add my password over here. So just adding my password. Congratulations, you are all set. The device now connected. Okay, so let me go back to the console. Okay, so it's saying that logged in as SomeSpace, so which is my ID I'm using for this session. And now let's run this GHPR status. Okay, so now it is running successfully and saying that failed to run Git. It is not a Git repository. So, but the directory I am into, it is not actually Git repository. So that is good. Means in our case, the GitHub CLI is working. Okay. So our next step is, let's go. And here we have downloaded CLI installation instructions. We have checked. We have also completed the installation of GitHub Enterprise. Now our next step is install GitHub Enterprise Importer GEI extension. So there are a few commands we have to run one after another. So if you scroll down, you will find a section that install GH extension. So first thing is that we have to check that what are the extension we have currently installed. So if I am just running this GH extension list, let's see what happens. No installed extensions found. Okay, so now we have to install this GEI, which is GitHub Enterprise Importer. So I'm just running this command over here. GH extension installed GitHub / GH hyphen GEI. It's saying installed extension GitHub / GH hyphen GEI. And now to verify the installation, I'm just running once more this extension list. And we see that we have this installed and version 0.46 we have installed over here. Okay, so we have completed our GitHub Enterprise Importer installation as well. Now we have to do this personal access token part. Okay, so we have to generate two personal access tokens, one from the source repository, another from the target repository. Now in our case, our source repository is in Azure DevOps and target repository is in GitHub Enterprise. So first I will show that where to go and create the personal access token in case of our Azure DevOps. Okay, so I'm logged into my Azure DevOps with the login ID, and you see that top right corner user settings, which is basically the second last icon. So click over that, you will get personal access tokens. So clicking over personal access tokens, clicking on new token, giving it a name, suppose migrate to GHE, GitHub Enterprise, that's fine. You select the organization. Now, let me emphasize on this point that you have this as drop down where it is asking that for which organization you want to create this personal access token. Now, in your case, if your particular requirement is to migrate one particular organization, you select that particular organization. Or if your requirement is to migrate all the organizations you have in Azure DevOps, then select all accessible organizations. In my case, I have one organization only, but I'm selecting all accessible organizations. So this personal access token will get access to all the organizations. Okay. Now, expiration 30 days, you can set based on your requirement what you need. Now, scopes authorize the scope of access associated with this token. I don't recommend to give full access because we will need few particular access, which is for work items read, code read, and we need one more. And if you click on the show all scope, you will find all 29 scopes over here. So we are looking for the identity. So this is our identity and we need the identity read scope. So there are three scopes, and here in this documentation, I have added that what are the scopes you will basically need it. So if you scroll down and let's go to our steps to create personal access token here for the Azure DevOps, you go to this user settings, create the new token, and then you have to set work items read, code read, identity read. Okay. Now let's go back to our ADO portal, and we don't have anything to do. Just scroll down and click on create. Okay. The token has been created. I'm just copying the token. Okay. And closing it. So our token is created. And let me go back to our instruction once again. So in this case, we have completed the token creation for Azure DevOps. Now this is the time for GitHub personal token creation. Okay. So in case of GitHub, you go to your profile settings, developer settings, and personal access token. Okay. So I am already logged into my GitHub account. Let me open my GitHub account over here. So here I am logged into my GitHub account, and basically this is the enterprise account. The 30 days of trial period is going on, and I have 29 days left on trial. Well, so what we will do basically that we are doing the migration from Azure DevOps to GitHub Enterprise. That's why I have created this enterprise account for testing. Now we have to create the personal access token, and for that you go to the profile, you go to settings, left side scroll down, and you will find developer settings, and again on left side you will find that personal access tokens. Clicking on tokens classic. Now it is asking to generate new token. So it is generate new token and again generate new token classics. So we are at classic, that's fine. Need an API token for script or testing, generate a personal access token for quick access to the GitHub API. So clicking on generate a personal token. Okay, so it is just asking a note. What is this token for? So migrate ADO to GHE. Okay, 30 days. Okay, in this case, we basically need to migrate repositories, workflow, like this. So I clicked on a repository, I clicked on workflow, I clicked on users, I clicked admin enterprise, I clicked projects. Also clicking on this write decisions, read and write team decisions. Okay, so just adding there, and you can select based on your requirement and tightly provide the access. Okay, admin Vergy, full control on the Vergy and teams. Okay, also full control of repository hooks, organization hooks, GitHub package registry, and clicking on generate token. Okay, so the token has been generated. I'm just copying this token, keeping it separately, and but just going back from here, and remember that you have to copy this token and keep it securely. Okay, so I'm just going back, and let's go back to our instruction list. So far we have completed till this personal access token for both source and target repositories. Source is our Azure DevOps, and target is our GitHub Enterprise. Okay, now if we are migrating to from Azure DevOps to GitHub Enterprise, then we have to set this environment variables. Okay, so we have this personal access token for ADO and GH in hand. So let's add the environment variable at this point. Okay, but if you are doing the migration from GitHub to GitHub, then your GitHub source goes here, gh underscore source underscore pat and gh underscore pat. So you create two access tokens from two separate accounts. Okay, so let me open the environment variable in Windows system. If you are using your Linux system, let me open the environment variable in my Windows system. If you are using your Linux system, you know that you run the command for export environment variable, and it sets for you. Okay, in Windows system I can use the set for through the command line, but let me do it through the GUI. Clicking on environment variables. Okay, first adding ADO path. and secondly, adding GitHub path. Well, so far in this session, we have completed downloading GitHub CLI, setting it up, check GitHub CLI installation instruction, GitHub Enterprise Importer extension, how we can install any extension, or we have already installed this GitHub Enterprise Importer, generate personal access token for Azure DevOps as well as GitHub. Okay, and we have set up the environment variable for Azure DevOps and GitHub Enterprise, both. Okay, so in our next session or in next part of this migration session, I will show you actually running that migration, because in this part we have done the foundation and setup for the migration. Now we will actually run the migration script in our part 2 session. Thank you for your time. See you in our next session.